They laughed when Sarah Mitchell showed up in a borrowed dress. Her sister Tiffany smirked, whispering loud enough, "Try not to embarrass us." Again. But Sarah doesn't flinch. She scans the crowd, calm. What they didn't know: the quiet girl they mocked once commanded black ops across continents. And when the groom stood, saluted, and said, General Ma'am Tiffany's jaw dropped. Stick around, because tonight the forgotten sister reclaims the spotlight, and this time the whole room stands. And hey, tell us where you're watching from and what time. Drop it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. The reception hall's crystal chandeliers cast perfect shadows across my designer Vera Wang gown as I, Tiffany Mitchell, adjust my veil one final time. Everything gleams exactly as I planned, until my eye catches that garish military uniform in the mirror's reflection. Sarah, my wayward sister, stands there like some kind of toy soldier, completely ruining my carefully curated aesthetic. "Darling, you look absolutely divine," Mother whispers pointedly, ignoring Sarah while fastening grandmother's golden charm bracelet around my wrist. The one Sarah never deserved. Its gentle tinkling sounds like victory, a reminder of who truly upholds the Mitchell family legacy. Just a gate guard. I say loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, sharing a knowing look with Aunt Linda. She couldn't even make it as a real officer. The words feel delicious on my tongue, familiar as honey. We've maintained this narrative for years, Sarah's military career as nothing more than an attention-seeking phase. But something shifts in the air when General Richardson approaches. I watch champagne flute frozen halfway to my lips as he makes a beeline, not for me, the bride the center of attention, but for Sarah. Their conversation carries across the marble floor. "Captain Mitchell, your tactical leadership during Operation Desert Shield was exemplary. The President specifically mentioned your unit's success." The crystal stem nearly cracks in my grip. Captain President. My perfect day's carefully constructed hierarchy begins to crack like thin ice. Sarah's eyes meet mine across the room, and for the first time I see something that makes my manicured hands tremble. Not submission, but power. Type facade if you've ever seen someone's perfect mask slip. Torn first CTA after the power shift. The charm bracelet suddenly feels heavy, each golden link, a shackle rather than a crown. I try to catch Mother's eye, but she's frozen in place, her carefully maintained smile cracking at the edges. Whispers ripple through the crowd like poison. Through the reception hall's open doors, I hear the distinct click of phone cameras. Dozens of them. Each snap feels like an accusation. Mitchell family fraud starts trending within minutes as guests eagerly share the delicious drama of a family's carefully constructed lies crumbling at a wedding. Will their years of dismissing her achievements survive this public exposure? I hear someone murmur, and my stomach lurches. The charm bracelet catches the light, no longer a symbol of favored status, but a damning testimony to years of calculated cruelty. All these years we crafted the perfect narrative. Sarah as the family disappointment, me as the golden child. But standing here in my $1,000 gown, watching my sister receive accolades from a general, I feel like the emperor without clothes. Have you ever watched your kingdom of lies collapse in slow motion? The bracelet slips slightly, and as I clutch it tighter, I remember the day Mother gave it to me instead of Sarah. "You understand the importance of appearance," she'd said. Now, surrounded by murmuring guests and clicking cameras, I realize appearance is all we had. Sarah approaches her medals, catching the light. For the first time, I see her not as my overshadowed sister, but as Captain Mitchell, decorated officer, presidential commendee, and living proof of our family's greatest shame. The game is over, and I, Tiffany Mitchell Brooks, never saw the checkmate coming. Officer Sarah Mitchell stared at her reflection in the Ferrari's polished hood, her charm bracelet catching the late afternoon sun. Each charm a gift, marking another moment of compliance with their parents' wishes, felt like a shackle now. The bass from Tiffany's wedding reception pulsed through the parking lot, but it couldn't drown out the growing unease in her mind. She traced the newest charm, a miniature tiara, commemorating Tiffany's wedding, remembering how she'd dismissed Sarah's military achievements just hours ago. "The Air Force is hardly proper society, dear," she'd said, voice dripping with the practiced condescension their mother had perfected. But now, watching through the venue's windows, as Sarah commanded attention from Mark's distinguished military colleagues, something shifted uncomfortably in her chest. The sound of champagne glasses clinking drew her attention back inside. A decorated officer was sharing stories of Sarah's leadership during a critical mission. Tiffany's fingers tightened around her crystal flute knuckles, whitening as she recalled the night she'd convinced their parents to withhold Sarah's college fund. "She's too independent," she'd argued. "It'll only encourage her rebellion." The words that had once felt righteous now tasted bitter on her tongue. Her phone buzzed another deposit notification from Daddy's trust fund. The screen reflected her perfectly arranged features, but for the first time, she saw something else, a puppet on golden strings. Each transaction, each lavish gift, each coincidental business connection through their father, they weren't rewards for independence. They were prices paid for obedience. The DJ switched to a slower song, and Tiffany watched Sarah dance with her commanding officer. Their conversation seemed easy, natural, filled with genuine respect. When was the last time anyone had looked at Tiffany with anything but carefully measured approval? Her charm bracelet caught on her silk dress, the tiny diamonds that had once felt like badges of honor, now scratching like tiny accusations. A memory surfaced Sarah at 18, standing firm despite their parents' threats to cut her off. "I won't live someone else's life," she'd declared. Tiffany had laughed, then, secure in her role as the good daughter. Now surrounded by Sarah's accomplished peers, that laughter echoed hollow in her mind. The Ferrari's keys grew heavy in her clutch. Every luxury in her life, the car, the penthouse, the executive position in Daddy's company, suddenly felt like evidence of her dependence rather than her success. Sarah had built her career from nothing, earned every stripe and commendation. What had Tiffany earned, really? Have you ever felt the weight of golden handcuffs, type puppet, if you've questioned your own independence? The bass continued to thump, but now it matched the growing pressure in Tiffany's chest. She watched her sister navigate the room with military precision, each interaction genuine, each smile earned. The contrast was stark. Sarah stood tall under her own power, while Tiffany felt the invisible strings of family expectations pulling at her limbs. Studies on family dynamics and emotional manipulation flashed through her mind, required reading for her psychology degree, another parent-approved choice. The patterns were textbook golden child syndrome, conditional love, systematic undermining of the difficult child. She'd been both victim and perpetrator, hadn't she? The charm bracelet caught the light again, and Tiffany finally recognized it for what it was, not a collection of achievements, but a catalog of compliance. Each charm marked a moment she'd chosen the family script over authenticity. Meanwhile, Sarah had written her own story, earned her own medals, real ones forged in service and leadership, rather than purchased with family funds. As the reception continued, Tiffany felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crack. The Ferrari no longer seemed like a symbol of success, but a gilded cage. Her position at the family company, her social connections, her entire identity, all of it rested on the foundation of being the perfect daughter, the one who played by their parents' rules. The truth settled like lead in her stomach. She wasn't the independent one. She was the carefully crafted extension of their parents' will, while Sarah, brave, rebellious Sarah, had actually broken free. The bass kept thumping, but now it sounded like a countdown. How long until the facade crumbled completely? Officer Bradley Larson watched in mounting horror as his world began to crumble fragment by fragment in the gilded reception hall. The whispers slithered through the crowd like poison, each hushed Captain Mitchell, feeling like a personal assault on his carefully maintained reality. His daughter Sarah, the one he'd dismissed as playing soldier, the one whose achievements he'd minimized at every family gathering, stood across the room in her dress blues, speaking with General Richardson, his own commanding officer from 20 years ago. The charm bracelet on his wrist felt like it was burning now. He'd given Sarah an identical one when she was 12, telling her to focus on more suitable pursuits. Now, watching her command the respect of everyone in the room, that memory twisted like a knife in his gut. His fingers traced the delicate charms, each one representing a milestone he'd chosen to ignore in her military career. Through the crystal champagne flute in his trembling hand, Bradley Larson saw his reflection fracture into 1,000 accusing faces. The murmurs grew louder. "Did you hear her father tried to stop her commission? Isn't he that retired officer who... Can't believe he never mentioned..." A young lieutenant nearby was live-streaming the entire scene, his phone's red recording light feeling like a sniper's dot on Bradley's forehead. Weddinggate was already trending locally. He'd seen it flash across his phone screen moments ago, along with clips of his earlier dismissive toast. "Sarah's always been ambitious. Maybe now she'll settle down." The weight of 2 decades of calculated belittlement pressed down on his shoulders as he watched General Richardson place a congratulatory hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Outstanding work on that rescue operation in Kandahar, Captain Mitchell. The Air Force is lucky to have you." The words carried clearly across the suddenly hushed reception hall. Bradley Larson's hand clenched around the charm bracelet, the metal edges biting into his palm. A memory surfaced Sarah at 18, standing tall in her ROTC uniform, while he'd laughed it off as a phase. "You'll grow out of this playing soldier nonsense," he'd said. Now the echo of those words made him nauseous. The recording phones had multiplied. His daughter-in-law Tiffany was watching him with unveiled disappointment, while Mark, his son, couldn't even meet his eyes. The carefully constructed narrative of his life, the respected retired officer, the loving father, the family patriarch, was unraveling in real time on social media. "Have you seen Captain Mitchell's combat record, Com?" Someone's voice cut through his spiral. 3 distinguished flying crosses. Her father never even mentioned. Bradley Larson's world tilted further as he caught sight of the Wall Street Journal reporter who'd been invited to cover the high society wedding. She was scribbling furiously in her notepad, her eyes darting between him and Sarah. Tomorrow's headlines flashed before his eyes, his decades of dismissiveness about to become public record. The charm bracelet slipped from his grasp, landing with a damning clink on the marble floor. As he bent to retrieve it, he heard Sarah's voice, strong and clear. "Yes, General, I've learned that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought in the field." The implications of his actions, the promotions he'd undermined, the achievements he'd downplayed, the respect he'd denied, crashed over Bradley Larson like a tidal wave. His carefully maintained image of paternal authority was drowning in a sea of revealed truth, all captured in high definition by the phones surrounding him. Type "truth hurts" if you've ever watched someone's carefully constructed lies collapse around them. His last desperate attempt at damage control died in his throat as Dontumacher's Weddinggate evolved into Sumarf. Mitchell soars, accompanied by his daughter's impressive military record. Each new share felt like another nail in the coffin of his authority, his pride, his carefully curated legacy. The charm bracelet felt ice-cold now, each charm a testament to his failure. The tiny silver wings he'd once mockingly added now seemed to mock him instead, as the weight of his decades-long campaign of diminishment threatened to bring him to his knees in front of everyone who mattered in his world. Tiffany Mitchell's perfectly manicured fingers trembled around her 3rd glass of champagne as she surveyed her meticulously planned wedding reception. The crystal chandeliers, imported roses, and string quartet she'd arranged for Tiffany's perfect day now seemed to mock her mounting dread. That familiar pearl necklace, her symbol of maternal authority worn at every family gathering, suddenly felt like it was choking her. The moment Mark approached the microphone, Tiffany Mitchell knew something was wrong. His military bearing, so similar to Sarah's, should have been her warning. The feedback pierced through the ballroom, making her wince, but it was nothing compared to the words that followed. "I'd like to honor someone special tonight," Mark's voice carried across the reception hall. "My commanding officer, Air Force Captain Sarah Mitchell." Tiffany Mitchell's champagne glass slipped from her grip, shattering against the marble floor. The sound echoed like a starting pistol, launching dozens of phones into the air. She could already imagine the hashtag #MilitaryMomFail. The same Sarah, Mark continued, his voice growing stronger, whom some here have repeatedly introduced as just a gate guard. The charm bracelet on Tiffany Mitchell's wrist, the one she'd filled with charms representing only Tiffany's achievements, seemed to burn against her skin. Each charm mocked her with memories of dismissive comments about Sarah's service. "Oh, she's just doing security at some base," or "She's not in any real danger, thank goodness." Mother and daughter locked eyes across the room. Sarah stood tall in her dress blues medals glinting under the chandelier light. Tiffany Mitchell saw 28 years of carefully constructed narratives crumbling in her daughter's steady gaze. "Captain Mitchell leads our elite tactical unit." Mark's words hammered the final nails into Tiffany Mitchell's social coffin. "She's decorated for valor under fire. She's saved my life twice." The murmurs grew louder. Tiffany Mitchell watched helplessly as her country club friends' expressions shifted from shock to judgment. Mrs. Henderson, her bridge partner, was already typing furiously on her phone. The YouTube video would probably go viral before dessert. Have you ever felt your carefully constructed world shatter? Type "truth wins" in the comments below. Tiffany Mitchell's hands shook as she reached for her phone, desperate to control the narrative. But notifications were already popping up. Military Mom Fail was trending locally. A distant cousin's TikTok of her champagne glass shattering had 10,000 views and climbing. "I just wanted to protect her." Tiffany Mitchell whispered to no one in particular, her voice lost in the growing chaos. "Military service wasn't part of our family's image." The pearl necklace felt heavier with each passing second. Tiffany Mitchell watched as Admiral Jenkins, another wedding guest, approached Sarah with a warm embrace. The same Sarah she'd carefully excluded from countless country club events, society gatherings, and family photos. In the corner, Tiffany was crying. Not the elegant tears Tiffany Mitchell had imagined for wedding photos, but angry ones that smeared expensive makeup. "You told me she chose to skip my engagement party," Tiffany accused, her voice carrying. "But she was deployed, wasn't she? Serving our country while we sipped champagne?" Tiffany Mitchell's carefully constructed world continued to unravel strand by strand, lie by lie. Each phone, capturing her undoing, felt like another nail in her social crucifixion. The charm bracelet slipped from her wrist, clattering to the floor like her final defense. Share this moment if you believe family pride should know no uniform. Military Mom Fail. As the string quartet played on, oblivious to the drama, Tiffany Mitchell realized that her greatest fear hadn't been Sarah's safety in the military. It had been the shattering of her own carefully curated image of the perfect family. Now, surrounded by the ruins of that image, she watched as her daughters embraced across the dance floor, their tears washing away years of manufactured distance. The pearl necklace finally became too much. Tiffany Mitchell's trembling fingers reached up and unclasped it, letting it join the charm bracelet on the floor. In the reflected light of dozens of phone cameras, she saw her carefully maintained facade lying there too broken beyond repair. Doris Eleanor Mitchell stands frozen before her vanity mirror, the same one where she'd practiced her society smiles for 40 years. Her manicured fingers trace the edges of the charm bracelet box, each charm a monument to her calculated dismissals of her daughter Sarah's achievements. 2.3 million views, she whispers, her voice cracking. The latest notification on her phone shows another 100 comments on the wedding video, most of them expressing outrage at her family's treatment of Captain Sarah Mitchell. The morning sun streams through her bedroom window, highlighting the military honors display she'd hidden in the attic years ago. Now it sits accusingly on her dresser, Sarah's Air Force medals catching the light. Each gleam feels like a silent rebuke. Doris remembers how she'd smile tightly whenever Sarah mentioned her promotions, changing the subject to Tiffany's latest social triumph. "I thought I was protecting our family's image," she murmurs, her perfectly composed facade finally crumbling. Her phone buzzes again, another comment on the viral video. The hashtag Mitchell Family Shame still trends occasionally, especially on military appreciation days. The moment plays in her mind for the 1,000th time, General Richardson standing up at Tiffany's wedding reception, his voice carrying across the stunned silence as he detailed Sarah's classified missions, her Bronze Star, her team's sacrifices. The sound of champagne glasses shattering as Mark, their country club friends, and half the guests realized they'd been mocking a decorated war hero for years. Doris picks up the charm bracelet, each charm burning with fresh meaning. The little silver airplane she'd dismissed as Sarah's hobby. The captain's bars she'd called costume jewelry. The combat wings she'd hidden in her purse during a country club luncheon. "I was the one playing dress-up," she admits to her reflection, "pretending our family's worth came from garden parties and social standings, while my daughter was saving lives." Her hands shake as she opens her laptop, clicking play on the wedding video yet again. The comments scroll past. "Type shame if you've ever had your family erase who you are." The look on the mother's face when she realized her disappointment daughter outranked everyone in the room. Share this so every family learns that status isn't about social circles. The most painful part comes at 3:47. The moment Sarah quietly stands, removes her civilian jacket to reveal her full dress uniform, and walks out of the reception without a word. The sound of her measured footsteps echoes in Doris's nightmares. She hasn't heard those footsteps since. "I thought I was building a legacy," Doris whispers to the empty room. "Instead, I was destroying one that already existed." She opens her phone's contact list, scrolling to Sarah's number. 12 months of unanswered calls mark her shame, like tallies on a prison wall. The charm bracelet catches the light one last time as Doris places it in a package addressed to the Air Force Museum. The note reads, "Display this as a reminder of how pride and prejudice can blind us to the heroes among us. Doris Mitchell, mother of Captain Sarah Mitchell, who deserved better." She takes one final look at her perfect room, her perfect clothes, her perfect life built on imperfect lies. "The truth isn't in what we show the world," she says, her voice stronger now. "It's in what we choose to see in others." Not Orem. Drop 1 if this story made you think about the heroes you might have overlooked in your own life. Share this video to remind others that true worth isn't measured in social status. It's measured in character and courage. The sound of the package sealing feels like a door closing on her old life. Doris Eleanor Mitchell, self-appointed guardian of social status, finally understands her daughter's wings weren't meant for her gilded cage. Type "Truth hurts" if you've ever had to face the painful reality about your own prejudices. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive isn't others, it's ourselves.